He was the king of the city, and she was his tall and beautiful wife. At the biggest charity gala of the year, in front of everyone who mattered, Marcus Vance didn't just break her heart, he shattered her life. He called her dead weight, publicly replacing her with a younger, more suitable woman. He had security escort her out, penniless and humiliated. But Marcus made one fatal mistake. He thought he was evicting
You
a
think you
stray.
can stop me?
He never
Your
realized he had
threats
just
mean
declared
nothing.
war on a dynasty.
We're not afraid of you.
He turned poor only when her family, the real power, arrived unannounced. The penthouse on Park Avenue was less a home and more a museum of Marcus Vance's success. It was all glass, brushed steel, and cold white marble cantilevered 70 floors above New York City. And like any prized exhibit, Ilara Vance was kept in perfect, silent condition. Ilara was his masterpiece, or so he often told his friends. He'd discovered her, he'd say, working as a simple art gallery assistant in Soho. He'd plucked her from obscurity, polished her, and given her his name. In return, she was expected to be beautiful, silent, and grateful. This evening was the dress rehearsal for the main event, the annual Vance Foundation Gala. It was Marcus's self-coronation, a night where the city's elite would gather to write seven-figure checks and kiss the ring of its newest corporate king. The blue, Ilara, not the green, Marcus said, not looking up from his phone. He was already in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo. Ilara stood in the enormous walk-in closet, the emerald green silk dress pooled at her feet. I thought the green brought out, "It makes you look sallow." The blue, the one I chose. His thumb swiped dismissively. And the Lockwood diamonds, not your grandmother's pearls. They look quaint. Quaint. The pearls were the only thing she had left of her mother's mother, a woman who had run a European shipping empire with more steel in her velvet glove than Marcus possessed in his entire body. But Marcus didn't know that. He thought Ilara Hayes, the name she'd been using when they met, was just some girl from a decent but unremarkable family in New England. She had never corrected him. She had wanted to be loved for herself, not for her name, her real name. The name she had run away from 8 years ago, desperate for a normal life, was Devereaux. Of course, Marcus. She murmured, her voice the practiced, soft tone he preferred. She slipped on the sapphire blue gown. It was exquisite, but it felt like a uniform. Downstairs, the pre-gala fundraiser was already underway. Marcus, CEO of Vance Industries, a rapidly expanding but deeply over-leveraged real estate firm, was holding court. He loved the sound of his own voice, especially when it was echoed by fawning investors and nervous politicians. Ilara drifted through the crowd, a perfect smiling ghost. She passed Senator Keating, who gave her a polite empty nod, and a few wives of board members who offered air kisses that smelled of Chanel No. 5 and rivalry. Then she saw her, Chloe Sterling. Chloe was the Vance Foundation's new director of strategic partnerships. She was barely 26, with a law degree from Yale and a predatory ambition that Ilara recognized instantly. She was also, Ilara knew, with a cold, sinking certainty, sleeping with her husband. She'd seen the late-night strategy texts, the lingering touches in the hallway, the way Marcus looked at her.
You think
Not
you can
like an
stop me?
exhibit, but like a
Your
new
threats
acquisition
mean
he
nothing.
couldn't wait to unwrap.
We're not afraid of you.
Chloe was in a blood-red dress, her hand on Marcus's arm, laughing a little too loudly. Marcus caught Ilara's eye from across the room. There was no apology in his gaze, no shame. There was only impatience. "Ilara, darling," he boomed, gesturing her over. The room quieted. Chloe was just telling me about the new projections for the children's wing. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Chloe smiled, a flash of perfect white teeth. "Oh, Ilara, you look lovely. Blue is so obedient on you. Marcus, we really must finalize the seating charts for tomorrow." She'd used Ilara's presence not to retreat, but to stake her claim. She was already the acting hostess. Ilara felt the familiar chill. She had spent 5 years being the perfect, unassuming wife, hiding her intellect, her background, and her strength, all in the name of a love she'd thought was real. She had sacrificed her dynasty for this man. And as she stood there, watching him look at Chloe Sterling, she realized her sacrifice hadn't just been in vain. It had been a joke. "If you'll excuse me," Ilara said, her voice a whisper, "I need to check on the catering for tomorrow." Marcus waved her away, already turning back to Chloe. Yes, you handle that." Ilara walked away, her back straight, her hands clenched so tightly her nails dug into her palms. She didn't go to the kitchen. She went to her small, hidden art studio at the back of the penthouse, the one room Marcus found cluttered and never entered. She closed the door, leaned against it, and let out a breath she felt she'd been holding for 5 years. On her easel was a half-finished painting, a chaotic, brilliant storm of dark blues and violent slashes of white. It was the only place she was allowed to be herself. She looked at the phone on her desk. One number was programmed into it, a number she had sworn never to call, matriarch. Her finger hovered over the contact. Not yet. Not until the humiliation was complete. And she had a terrible, sickening feeling that tomorrow, at the gala, Marcus was planning to give her exactly that. The grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel was a sea of glittering diamonds and desperate ambition. This was the night, the 10th annual Vance Foundation Gala. Marcus had spent a rumored $3 million on the event, transforming the space into a modern Versailles, complete with ice sculptures and flowing champagne fountains. Ilara stood by his side at the entrance, her smile as practiced and brittle as the spun sugar on the croquembouche. She wore the blue dress. She wore the Lockwood diamonds. She was the perfect silent accessory. Marcus, wonderful. A donor bellowed, slapping Marcus on the back. Senator, so glad you could make it. Marcus, you've outdone yourself. Only the best, you know that. Marcus was electric, feeding on the adoration. He barely looked at Ilara, except to occasionally grip her arm in a gesture that looked like affection to the cameras, but felt like a warning to her. Chloe Sterling was already inside, working the room like a seasoned politician.
You think you can
She
stop
had saved
me?
a seat for herself
Your
at the head
threats
table,
mean nothing.
right next to Marcus.
We're not
Ilara's
afraid of
seat,
you.
she noted with a cold prickle, was on the other side, next to a doddering, half-deaf board member. The hierarchy was clear. The transition was already in progress. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The presentation is about to begin. The lights dimmed. A slickly produced video played, showing Marcus Vance cutting ribbons, shaking hands, and staring thoughtfully at blueprints. It painted him as a visionary, a philanthropist, a man single-handedly rebuilding the city. Ilara watched, her stomach twisting. The man on the screen was a stranger. The man she'd married, or thought she'd married, was a quiet, driven man who'd told her he hated the stuffy world of his parents. It had all been a lie. He hadn't hated it. He'd just been on the outside, desperate to get in. And she, Ilara Devereaux, had been his key. Except he'd never even known which lock she opened. The video ended. The spotlight hit the podium. Marcus strode onto the stage to thunderous applause. Thank you. Thank you. He beamed, holding his hands up. Friends, colleagues, family. He began with the usual platitudes, thanking the donors, praising the board, outlining the foundation's bold new vision. Ilara let the words wash over her. She was tracing the patterns on the tablecloth, planning her escape. A small apartment, a quiet job, a life where she could finally paint. She would have to call her family. The thought was humiliating, but not as humiliating as this. Then his tone shifted. But change, Marcus said, his voice dropping, is not always easy. To build something new, you must first have the courage to tear down what is old. The room grew quiet. This wasn't in the prepared remarks she'd seen. For Vance Industries to reach the next level, for me to reach my full potential, I have to be willing to make hard cuts, to shed dead weight. A few people shifted uncomfortably. This was unusually aggressive, even for Marcus. Ilara's blood ran cold. She looked up. The spotlight was still on him, but his eyes, two dark pits of ambition, were locked directly on her. My marriage, my partnership with Ilara has been a comfort. He used the past tense. The air left her lungs. But comfort is the enemy of greatness. There were gasps. Senator Keating, sitting nearby, looked frozen, a forkful of lobster thermidor halfway to his mouth. Ilara has been a wonderful part of my journey, Marcus continued, his voice dripping with false sincerity. But her journey ends here. We have amicably decided to separate. This was the first Ilara was hearing of it. Amicably. And in her place, Marcus said, a triumphant smile spreading across his face, I am thrilled to announce a new partner. Someone who shares my vision, my drive, and my passion for the future. He gestured to the side of the stage. Please welcome the new Senior Vice President of Vance Industries and the new chairwoman of this foundation, Ms. Chloe Sterling. Chloe glided onto the stage, bathed in a second spotlight, her red dress clinging to her like
You
a
think you
second
can
skin.
stop me?
She took
Your
Marcus's
threats
hand.
mean nothing.
He kissed her.
We're not
a
afraid
peck
of
on
you.
the cheek, but a full, passionate kiss right there on stage, in front of 500 of the most powerful people in New York. The camera flashes were blinding. It was an execution. Ilara sat paralyzed, the blood roaring in her ears. She was vaguely aware of a man in a black suit, one of Marcus's private security, approaching her table. "Ma'am," he murmured, his voice gentle but firm, "Mr. Vance has arranged a car." He wasn't asking, he was telling. "But my things," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Your belongings will be forwarded to an address of your choosing," the security guard said, his eyes empty. He was reading a script. She stood up. The room was spinning. Every eye was on her. Some held pity. Most held a cruel, reptilian curiosity. They were witnessing a social death, and they would dine out on it for weeks. As the guard's hand touched her elbow, steering her towards the exit, Marcus's voice boomed over the microphone one last time. And now, a new beginning. To the future. The applause was deafening. The heavy ballroom doors swung shut behind her, cutting off the sound. She was in the silent, carpeted hallway, alone. The guard had already melted away. She walked one foot in front of the other through the opulent lobby. The doorman who had greeted her with a fawning Mrs. Vance just 2 hours earlier now looked straight through her. She stepped out into the cold November air. The car Marcus had arranged was a standard black Lincoln Town car, not her usual Bentley driver. It was a final petty twist of the knife. As she slid into the back seat, her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Penthouse locks have been changed. My lawyer, Mr. Adler, will contact you tomorrow with the divorce settlement. It is non-negotiable. Be smart, Ilara. Don't make this messy." A second buzz. Her credit card. An alert from her bank. Account frozen by primary holder. He hadn't just divorced her. He hadn't just humiliated her. He had erased her. He had left her on the street, penniless, with nothing but a $20,000 dress and a pair of borrowed diamonds. She took a deep, shuddering breath. The tears didn't come. What came instead was a coldness she hadn't felt in years, a familiar ancestral cold. She looked at her own phone, the one he didn't pay for, the one she'd kept hidden. She opened her contacts and pressed the one named Matriarch. It rang once. "It's done," a crisp, ageless voice said. "No, hello." Ilara's voice was hoarse. "Grandmother, it's Ilara." There was a silence on the line. A vast, snowy silence that stretched from New York to the family chateau in Geneva. "He did it," Ilara whispered, the first tear finally tracking a path through her perfect makeup. "He did it all." Another pause. Then the voice of Genevieve Devereaux, the iron-willed head of the Devereaux global empire, spoke 3 words. "Give me the name." "Marcus Vance," Ilara said. "Vance Industries." "I see. And the other one?" "Chloe Sterling. Her father is, I think, in logistics."
You think
"He
you can
is,"
stop me?
Genevieve said. "And
Your
his
threats
largest
mean
contract
nothing.
is with our shipping division
We're not
in
afraid of
Rotterdam."
you.
Was. Ilara closed her eyes. The machine was already turning. "Stay where you are, Ilara," the matriarch commanded. "A car is coming for you, not a Lincoln. You are a Devereaux. You will not be seen in a Lincoln." The line clicked dead. Ilara looked out the window. The town car was pulling up to a mid-level hotel. Marcus's final insult, a prepaid room. She told the driver to stop. She got out. She would not go in. She stood on the corner of 59th and 5th, a statue of sapphire blue. She was no longer Mrs. Vance. Within 5 minutes, a black, gleaming Rolls-Royce Phantom, the kind with diplomatic plates, purred to a stop in front of her. A driver in a full Devereaux grey livery stepped out and opened the door. "Ms. Ilara," he said as if he'd just dropped her off 5 minutes ago. "The matriarch is en route." As Ilara slid into the plush, buttery leather interior, she knew. Marcus hadn't just shed dead weight. He had just torpedoed his entire fragile world. And he had no idea the iceberg was now heading straight for him. The Devereaux safe house wasn't a house. It was the entire 50th floor presidential suite of the St. Regis, permanently retained under a corporate name for family use. It was quiet, opulent, and most importantly, secure. Ilara spent the first 24 hours in a fog. The Devereaux team, a silent, efficient group of professionals who had materialized at the hotel, had handled everything. A woman named Sophia, who was part assistant, part security, had produced a wardrobe of perfectly tailored clothes in Ilara's exact size. A lawyer, not a family one, but a specialist, had appeared, taken her statement, and vanished. Ilara's prized Lockwood diamonds had been removed, catalogued, and sent to a vault to be returned to Marcus in the most insulting way possible, via a bonded messenger with a receipt. She sat on a silk chaise lounge overlooking Central Park, a cup of tea she didn't remember asking for in her hand. The shock was wearing off, replaced by a deep, vibrating hum of shame and a darker, colder anger. She had been so stupid. She had fallen for the oldest trick, a charming pool and a promise of normalcy. She who had been trained since birth to spot a grifter, a social climber, a liar. She had seen all those traits in Marcus and had, in her romantic delusion, mistaken them for ambition. Her phone, the Vance phone, was a smoldering ruin. The media was having a field day. Vance's new vision, CEO dumps wife for VP at annual gala. From +1 to -1, the socialites' stunning fall. Marcus Vance and Chloe Sterling, the new power couple. The gossip columns were brutal. They painted her as a clueless, boring, last-season wife who hadn't been able to keep up with her dynamic husband. Page 6 ran a particularly cruel piece quoting an insider, clearly Chloe, who said Alora's only hobby was finger painting. Meanwhile,
You think you can
Marcus and
stop
Chloe
me?
were embarking on a
Your
victory
threats
tour.
mean nothing.
They were photographed having
We're
a
not afraid of
celebratory
you.
breakfast at Balthazar, Chloe's hand flashing a massive canary yellow diamond, a ring that must have been purchased weeks, if not months ago. Marcus had given an interview to the Wall Street Journal set up for the morning after the gala. Vance Industries is pivoting. He'd said his picture plastered on the front page, oozing confidence. We are leaner, more aggressive. We've cut all sentimental ties. Our new flagship project, the Hudson Elysian Tower, is fully funded. We are unstoppable. Alora let the newspaper fall to the floor. Fully funded, she whispered. She knew for a fact the Elysian Tower was a house of cards. Marcus had leveraged everything, including the penthouse, to break ground. He was desperate for a final round of financing. The door to the suite opened. He's arrogant. And arrogance is expensive. Genevieve Devereaux stood in the doorway, not as a grandmother, but as a queen. She was 75, but looked 50. Her silver hair pulled into a severe, elegant chignon. She wore a Chanel suit the color of glacial ice. Behind her stood Alora's two brothers, men who were as much a part of the family business as she was. Liam Devereaux, the elder. He was the enforcer, the CFO of Devereaux Holdings. He saw the world in numbers, and he had the face of a particularly unforgiving auditor. Julian Devereaux, the younger. He was the diplomat, the family's chief counsel and head of public relations. He was the charming one, the one who buried the bodies with a smile. Alora, Genevieve said, walking over and kissing the air near her cheek. You look thin, and you've let your French get rusty. Grand-mère, Alora said, standing. Sit, Genevieve commanded, taking the chair opposite her. Liam and Julian remained standing, flanking her like two custom-suited watchtowers. I have read the news, Genevieve said, her lip curling in distaste as she gestured to the page 6 article. Finger painting, disgraceful. I'm sorry, Alora whispered. I brought shame. You did not, Liam interjected, his voice a low growl. You were betrayed. There is a difference. But Liam is correct, Julian added smoothly. The optics are unseemly. A Devereaux thrown out like common trash. It will not stand. Indeed, Genevieve said. Now, Alora, tell us, what do you want? Alora looked at her hands. I just want to disappear. I want to go to the farmhouse to paint. No, Genevieve said. It was final. That is what she wants. She motioned to the newspaper. The boring, clueless wife. You will not give them the satisfaction. You will not run. You ran once. Look where it got you. The words were sharp but true. This is not a social slight, Alora. This is a declaration of war. He didn't just humiliate you. He humiliated this family. He did it publicly, so we will respond publicly. He thinks he's a king. We will remind him what a dynasty looks like. Genevieve leaned forward. This man, Marcus Vance.
You think you can stop me?
Private equity firm
Your
in
threats
Luxembourg
mean
for
nothing.
the Hudson Elysian
We're not
project.
afraid of you.
Correct? Alora nodded. Lux Cap Partners. He was so proud of securing it. He said they were anonymous and stupid. Liam smiled a thin, cold expression. LuxCap Partners was acquired in a hostile takeover by Devereux Holdings at 9 a.m. Central European Time this morning. The anonymous and stupid money he's building his dream on, it's ours. Alora's jaw dropped. But how you left a paper trail, Julian said. In your finger-painting studio, you kept meticulous notes on his business, his passwords, his private servers. You were the perfect invisible wife. You were also the perfect spy. Alora hadn't even realized it. She just listened. She absorbed. And Miss Chloe Sterling, Genevieve continued tapping a pristine white envelope on the table. Her father, Sterling Logistics, as I mentioned, their largest contract was with our Rotterdam port. That contract was terminated effectively immediately for breach of ethical standards. Julian has also helpfully leaked to the press that Sterling Logistics is being investigated for customs fraud. They aren't, Liam noted. They are now, Julian corrected. Reputation is everything. So, Genevieve said, standing, this is the plan. Marcus Vance believes he is at his peak. He is celebrating his new life. We will let him. For 48 hours, he will be the king of New York. He is announcing his merger with Sino-Pacific Investments on Thursday, correct? Alora nodded. It's the final piece of his Elysian funding, a press conference at his office. Excellent, Genevieve said. That is where we will cut the head off the snake. Alora, you will go to the salon. You will go shopping. You will be seen, but you will not be seen. You are preparing. Preparing for what? Alora asked, a new strength hardening her voice. For your reintroduction, Julian said, smiling. Alora Vance is dead. We are about to reintroduce the world to Alora Devereux. For the next 48 hours, Marcus Vance lived in a golden-tinted bubble. His life was perfect. He woke up in his penthouse, the scent of Alora's dusty lavender and old books finally replaced by Chloe's modern, sharp perfume. Chloe herself was a revelation. She woke up at 5:09 a.m., reviewed Chinese market reports before her first espresso, and matched his ambitions step for step. She wasn't just a partner, she was a weapon. Clear's throat. Did you see the journal? He said, throwing the paper onto the bed. Vance, the maverick of Manhattan. They're finally getting it. Chloe looked up from her laptop, pouting her lips. I don't like maverick. It sounds uncontrolled. I prefer visionary. But the picture is good. She walked over and straddled his lap. The press conference on Thursday is going to be massive. Once we announce the Sino-Pacific deal, we'll be untouchable. Marcus felt a surge of pure, unadulterated power. He had done it. He had achieved everything he'd ever wanted. He'd cut the one tie that was holding him back. Alora. He felt a brief, mosquito-like sting of not guilt, but annoyance. He'd received a curt email from a law firm he'd never heard of, Hadrian and Locke, confirming they represented Alora.
You
They'd
think you can
attached a
stop
copy
me?
of the prenuptial
Your
agreement
threats
he'd
mean
forced her to
nothing.
sign. It was
We're not afraid of
ironclad.
you.
She got nothing. Her lawyer had only one request, that her art supplies be forwarded to a P.O. box. Marcus had laughed. Finger paintings. He'd told his assistant to handle it, which meant throw them in the building's incinerator. His lawyer, Mr. Adler, had called him. Marcus, just a flag, Adler had said, his voice tinny. This firm, Hadrian and Locke, they're not a divorce mill. They're significant. Their managing partner is on the Federal Reserve Board. So, Marcus had scoffed. She's probably got some bleeding heart pro bono case. She signed the papers, Adler. It's done. As you say, Marcus. And the financials for the Sino-Pacific closing? Airtight, Marcus said. LuxCap wired the last tranche yesterday. The money is in escrow. The Hudson Elysium Tower is a go. His world was perfect. But there were small tremors. His assistant buzzed him. Mr. Vance, a slight issue. Sterling Logistics just declared force majeure. They're pulling their entire fleet. What? Marcus barked. They can't do that. They're Chloe's family. He'd stormed into Chloe's new cavernous office. What the hell is going on with your father? Chloe looked pale. Her usual compunction cracked. He said they're being investigated, some ridiculous customs fraud charge. He said a contract was pulled, a big one. He's furious. He told me I should have stayed in my lane. Useless, Marcus muttered. Fine. We'll get another logistics company. Call O'Malley. O'Malley just terminated their contract with us, his assistant said over the intercom, her voice quavering. And so did Eastern Trucking and Global Link. What is this? Marcus roared. Is this a joke? They all cite financial risk reviews, the assistant whispered. A cold dread, The first he'd felt in days began to creep up his spine. It doesn't matter, he said more to himself than to Chloe. It's all noise. The Sino-Pacific deal is all that matters. The money is in. The deal is closing. Thursday. Nothing can stop that. He was Marcus Vance. He was a maverick. He was a visionary. He was unstoppable. He spent the rest of the day in a flurry of angry calls, all of which went to voicemail. Suppliers he'd had lunch with last week were suddenly in a meeting. Bankers who had begged for his business were on vacation. It was a coincidence, a statistical blip. He went home craving the reassurance of his perfect penthouse. When he walked in, he found Chloe frantically packing a suitcase. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "My father called," she said, her voice high and thin. "The feds just raided his office. They're freezing our assets, his assets. He said this is a professional hit. He said I'm radioactive. I have to go. Go where we have the press conference tomorrow. You don't get it. Do you?" she shrieked, her mask of sophistication shattering. "This isn't about you. My family is being ruined. I thought you were a king,
You think you can
Marcus.
stop me?
But this
Your threats
this is a
mean
war,
nothing.
and you're on
We're
the
not
wrong
afraid
side.
of you.
What are you talking about? What war I won? Did you?" she said, zipping the bag. "This all started the day after that stupid gala, the day after you humiliated your little mouse of a wife. You poked something, Marcus. You poked something you shouldn't have. Get out!" he hissed, his voice dropping. "Gladly," she spat, grabbing her passport. "And for the record, your Elysium Tower is a glass monstrosity, and I hate canary diamonds." She slammed the door. Marcus stood alone in the marble foyer, the silence of the penthouse deafening. The fear was no longer a creep, it was a flood. He ran to his office and pulled up the accounts for the LuxCap Partners financing. The money was still there in the escrow account, safe. He breathed. It was fine. Chloe was a liability anyway. Her family was a mess. He was better off. He'd announce the deal tomorrow solo. He was a lone wolf, a visionary. He poured himself a 30-year-old Macallan, his hand shaking just slightly. It was all a coincidence. It had to be. Thursday, 11 a.m. The main conference hall at Vance Industries headquarters was packed. The Sino-Pacific deal was huge. It wasn't just a merger, it was a symbolic marriage of New York real estate and Asian capital. The Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, the Financial Times, every major outlet was there. Marcus Vance stood backstage adjusting his power blue tie. He hadn't slept. The departure of Chloe, followed by a sleepless night of his suppliers' lines going dead, had left him rattled. But the adrenaline of the crowd, the flashing cameras, the knowledge that he was this close to pulling it off steadied him. This was it, the moment he became a legend. "Ladies and gentlemen," his PR director announced from the podium, "the CEO of Vance Industries, Mr. Marcus Vance." Marcus strode onto the stage, forcing his most confident shark-like smile. The applause was strong. "Thank you," he began, his voice booming. "Thank you for coming. What a day for New York. What a day for the future." He launched into his speech. He talked about vision. He talked about steel and glass and the skyline. He talked about the transformative partnership with Sino-Pacific. And now, at this very moment, he said, building to his crescendo, the $4 billion wire transfer that finalizes our joint venture is being released. The Hudson Elysium Tower is no longer a dream. It is a reality. He expected thunderous applause. Instead, there was a commotion at the back of the room. The heavy oak doors of the conference hall swung open. A few journalists turned annoyed by the interruption. Then they fell silent. The silence spread like a virus. First, two very large, very well-dressed men who looked like they could snap a person in half and then file a legal brief about it, entered and stood at ease scanning the room. Then Julian Devereaux entered. He was smiling, radiating charm, and wearing a Savile Row suit that probably cost more than the podium Marcus was gripping. He
You
was
think you can
followed by
stop
Liam
me?
Devereaux, who was
Your
not
threats
smiling.
mean nothing.
Liam held a
We're not
leather-bound
afraid of you.
portfolio, and he looked at the room at Marcus as if he were calculating its liquidation value. Then a hush fell as Genevieve Devereaux entered. She commanded the space not by speaking, but by breathing. The scent of her perfume, a rare custom blend Guerlain, preceded her. She stopped, surveyed the room, and her gaze, cold and assessing, settled on Marcus. Marcus had gone completely deathly still. His mind was racing. Devereaux. The Devereaux. the Swiss-French banking and logistics dynasty, the family that owned half of Europe and had been old money when the Rockefellers were still drilling. What were they doing here? He'd been trying to get a meeting with Devereux Holdings for years. Ms. Devereux. Marcus stammered, his prepared speech forgotten. He fumbled off the stage, rushing toward her, his hand outstretched, his plastic smile snapping back into place. What an unexpected honor. I had no idea you were in New York. Had I known, I would have. Well, this is incredible. Genevieve looked at his outstretched hand as if it were a dead fish. She did not take it. Mr. Vance, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the silent room like a shard of ice. Please, he gushed. My staff can find you a seat. We're just announcing it's a new era. We are not here for a seat, Julian said, stepping forward smoothly. We are here for a clarification. A clarification? Marcus laughed nervously. About what? The deal. It's all public. No, Genevieve said. Not about your deal. About a personal matter. The journalists were now out of their seats, cameras flashing, recorders on. This was 1,000 times better than a boring merger. I don't understand, Marcus said. The dread was back thick and suffocating. You see, Genevieve said, this family takes its name very seriously, Mr. Vance. And you have, misused it. Misused your name? I would never, he sputtered. I have the utmost respect for. And yet, Genevieve continued, you put a member of this family, the daughter of this house, you put her in a taxi in the middle of the night with her credit cards canceled. The room inhaled as one. Marcus's brain short-circuited. Daughter. What? Daughter. You had her escorted from a public event like a common criminal, Genevieve said, her voice rising almost imperceptibly, but to devastating effect. I don't know what you're talking about, Marcus stammered, his face losing all color. Don't you? And then Genevieve Devereux stepped to the side. She had been obscuring the doorway. Now she revealed the person standing just behind her, Ilara. But this was not the Ilara he knew. This was not the quiet, mousy woman in the ill-fitting, quaint pearls. This was Ilara Devereux. Her hair, once a simple brown, was now a rich, dark auburn, styled in a cut so sharp it could draw blood. She wore a tailored suit of crimson red, a color of war that fit her like armor. Her grandmother's pearls were gone, replaced by a single massive Devereux family crest, a diamond and ruby lion.
We're not